Here are 5 lessons I learned as a fragrance collector that completely changed the way that I see fragrance. So guys, fragrance tells a story. Every scent tells a story, and a lot of fragrances really can teach you valuable lessons that go beyond just fragrance. 5 lessons here, 5 scenarios, and 5 fragrances that we're going to talk about today. Let's get right into it. Number one is going to be the power of a compliment pulling scent. And so obviously every fragrance collector and every person who gets into fragrance, everybody who becomes kind of a connoisseur and collector, really to me has that one signature scent that really kind of got them down the rabbit hole. And so for me, I always talk about this fragrance, throughout the channel constantly, but it's because it really was key in me becoming someone who takes this seriously as a hobby. And this fragrance is Jean Paul Gaultier Le Male Le Parfum. So in the times that I mentioned it, where I always talk about how initially the first couple times I actually tried Le Male Le Parfum, I actually thought it was going to be a bit of a dud because, the spray in the initial opening was a little bit soft in the beginning, but then it was one of those, I just wore it out and about, and there were so many people who used to compliment me about this fragrance. They would ask me, oh, what is it that you're smelling? How did you get it? Where do I get it from? Hey, can you teach me about fragrances? So just on having a nice signature comment pulling fragrance, it really kind of made me have to break out of my shell of introversion as well. It helped me learn how to communicate, public speak. It also made me better as a teacher as well because I got into fragrances. I used to wear this, and just when you spray and when you have a nice compliment pulling fragrance, your confidence is uplifted. You feel better about yourself. And so just having all of those layers kind of embodied through this one idea of having a compliment pulling fragrance was big, and it was vital to me, and it was really instrumental. So Le Male Le Parfum was that first lesson that I took in the fragrance game. Number 2, and probably this is one of the biggest lessons / mistakes that many collectors make, especially newbies in the game, which is lesson number 2 is don't wait to strike on a fragrance, or don't wait to purchase on a fragrance you're thinking about getting. So obviously the fragrance that I'm gonna talk about here is this one from the brand YSL, and this one here is YSL Y Blue Electrique. So I tell this story all the time about this fragrance for me. I remember it dropped in 2021. Now Blue Electrique was one of those fragrances. It hit the fragrance community like a buzz. So my brother got this one, and I remember he bought it for retail. He bought it when it first came out. And I remember getting my nose on it, and I thought, wow, that's really good. L'Homme de L'Homme, the original, was already one of the top fragrances of all time, one of the top day-night fragrances of all time. They took it and improved the longevity, the scent DNA, scent quality. But at the time, I was thinking to myself, I was like, it smells good, but I'm waiting for it to get to a discount. I'm gonna just wait, and I'll wait till it hits a discount. And so I remember we went out a few times, my brother and I, and every time he wore it out, his fragrance, he was getting beat. Like he was beating me with the fragrance I was wearing. He would get more compliments. And so it was like, all right, let me just go ahead, pull the trigger, and let me get my hands on it. Literally, I went to Macy's the next day. And when I got to Macy's, it had been off the shelves. It had been out of the display case. And so when I asked the lady, I was like, hey, do y'all have Blue Electrique? She was like, oh, that fragrance has been discontinued. And it had only been maybe 4 or 5 months. Like it didn't last a year. And so it was at that moment that I knew, hey, when you have a fragrance that you're really into, you got to strike while the iron is hot. And even this goes further. When I was younger, kind of how I got into the rabbit hole of fragrance. I talk about this from time to time. There was a fragrance I had when I was in high school that I had that smells a lot like Spice Bomb EDT, but essentially when I wore that fragrance to school every day, I was getting complimented on it. When I ran out, had my mom take me up to Nordstrom, that fragrance had been discontinued. So you would think you would learn the first time about striking while the iron is hot, but at the end of the day, if there's a fragrance that you guys have and you guys are looking to get it, don't wait, pull the trigger on it if it's within your means, obviously, right? If it's a matter of, oh, I'll wait to get it on a discounter, you may not be able to get it off a discounter because it may get discontinued sooner than later, especially with a lot of these designer brands dropping newer releases, dropping elixirs. They're trying to discontinue a lot of their old creations. So if you ever find a fragrance that you're into, that you're thinking maybe I should get it, pull the trigger on it and you won't regret that decision. All right, lesson number 3 is a really simple one, but I have it right here. And lesson number 3 is that affordable doesn't mean less impressive. All right, so the fragrance that embodies this lesson is this fragrance here, Afnan Supremacy in Heaven. So Supremacy in Heaven is a fragrance for me I love. I'm on my 4th bottle of it. I've given one away. but I have now 3 bottles of it. I'm probably gonna get another one because this current bottle is about to be out. But Afnan Supremacy in Heaven is $25 on discounters, right? So when you talk about cheap being affordable, a lot of people have the misconception and the misnomer that, well, because it's less expensive, because it's affordable, that means it's lesser in quality, and that's not always the case. Sometimes it's just a matter of the brand decides to sell their cologne, especially a lot of the Middle Eastern brands. They decide to sell their colognes a little bit more affordably, which is great for the consumer, and it makes them want to buy, as opposed to a lot of the more expensive, name brands. Really, truly, in fragrance, one of the key lessons you'll learn quickly is that you oftentimes are buying the name more than you are buying the actual fragrance, for people who are beginners to it. For myself, who's a collector, who's been doing this for well over a decade, right? My number one focus and sole want is it going to be a fragrance that is going to pull compliments, and what is the scent profile, what is the sillage, what is the longevity, right? But first and foremost is, will it pull compliments? And I've realized, as I've kind of rebuilt my collection, that affordable doesn't mean less impressive. If anything, a lot of the more affordable fragrances I find have really done well and have pretty good scent DNAs, because if you're gonna sell something affordable, right, and it's not gonna be the top name brand stuff, you really have to make sure that you have a quality scent behind it, in my opinion. So lesson number 3, guys, affordable doesn't mean less impressive. Some of the best fragrances can be had at a really affordable price. Lesson number 4, we're gonna go back to YSL for this one, and that lesson number 4 is 3 words: simplicity is key, right? And so how this kind of lesson kind of manifested itself, it is embodied through this fragrance here from YSL. This one is YSL L'Homme EDT. So how this one goes is that when I got my hands on L'Homme EDT, and even at the time when I had first started talking about, my friend Trey and I, we were going to start doing these reviews out in public. We were going to start asking women, hey, can you guys rate this fragrance for us? The reason being is that it's best to get that real in-person feedback as far as cologne and fragrance is concerned, right? So I remember when I got my nose and when I got my hands on L'Homme the first time, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, this is a simple fragrance. It's simple, it's nice, fresh, clean, with some strong notes of ginger, but it's really smooth. I thought it was just gonna be an average run-of-the-mill fragrance. And so then when we went out and we were getting the feedback in public on this fragrance, a lot of women really love this scent DNA, right? Like 20 out of 10, 10 out of 10. We would battle it over, with some of the more complex fragrances with a whole bunch of notes in them. Your Mancera sometimes that have 10 to 12 notes in them, and this one would win. Hey, which fragrance do you like better? Oh, we like the L'Homme. The L'Homme is simple, fresh, and clean. And so it was really at that point when I started to evolve my fragrance nose to not always look at, what is the most complex, seductive fragrance that you can get your hands on. That was kind of my fragrance nose and fragrance personality at the beginning. And then I realized, as I've kind of become a more experienced collector, sometimes the simple notes, simple breakdown, simple DNA is where you just have maybe 4 to 5 notes, but the fragrance is done very effectively. Those are some of the best fragrances for you to get your hands on, especially for me. The fresh, clean, simple, and effective high quality fragrances are really some of the ones that are the game changers and the ones that women love, honestly. So lesson number 4, simplicity is key when you're getting into fragrance, right? All right, final lesson that we have for today, and this one kind of is an add-on to a previous one, which is that price doesn't always equal compliments, right? So the reason why we say price doesn't guarantee compliments, we use a fragrance like this one here. This one is called Friedrich Mahr Musk Ravageur. So Musk Ravageur, even if you buy it off of a discount, you're still going to be paying close to $300. Now, this one was one I blind bought a while back. I think 2023 is when I got my hands on this one. And don't get me wrong, the fragrance is good and it's nice. But when you talk about wearing it out in public, when you talk about kind of trying it out and we were doing this feedback, it really wasn't performing that well. I think a lot of women talked about its muskier nature, musky sweetness that really kind of was kind of confusing to them, was what it gave. Yes, it is musky, so it gives that primal, seduction, but it was also one of those like, okay, there's a lot going on with that fragrance. Another fragrance that I actually love, but it kind of falls into this category a little bit. your initials, so your rehabs versus like Oud for Greatness. Like rehab for me is very nice, but it's 350, right? Versus you can get your hands on Spice Bomb Extreme, and people tend to compliment that one just as much. So do you want to pay 125 and get Spice Bomb Extreme, or do you want to pay for the rehab, even though it's a little smoother than Spice Bomb Extreme? That's a lot of what that fragrance gives me reminiscences of, right? So what I'm saying is 350 and having the most expensive fragrance doesn't always guarantee you compliments. It's usually going to mean you're going to get more uniqueness out of your fragrance because you're buying it from a niche house, but unique isn't always what we're trying to go for if compliments are your top priority, okay? So at the end of the day, don't always look at it and be concerned with, oh, because it's expensive, that means it's better. It's not always the case, right? $25 has pulled me way more compliments than $350 at times, right? And I think that's the end all lesson in all this. So there you go, guys. 5 lessons, 5 of the key takeaways I learned throughout my fragrance journey that have really helped shape the way that I kind of see fragrances. Really not so much about price, which is why I tell you guys, fragrance doesn't have to cost you an arm and a leg. Truth be told, smelling good doesn't have to cost you an arm and a leg. You can get your hands on great, affordable fragrances. And then as you start to build your fragrance personality, as you start to build your nose, your palate, as you start to understand, I like fragrances like this. That's what I tell people all the time. Hey, what are the fragrances you like to wear? Once I get that, then I usually am very good at helping people, as far as, hey, I think you would like this one. Hey, I would recommend this one for you, right? If you want something different, then I try this one out for you. And that's kind of the way I tell people, and that's how I go about fragrances. Hey, we start off with what I like, what I know, start off with the affordable options of it, maybe get some designers that are a little bit more mid-tier, then we can get into the niche. I think that's a good way to go about getting into fragrance. But guys, that'll do it. As always, thank you guys for tuning in. If you found this video helpful, make sure you hit the subscribe and the follow button so you get notified anytime I drop any new fragrance content. You can also join the memberships tab. Drop supers in the chat anytime you get the chance to. Let me know what lessons you guys have learned. What are some of the fragrances that have taught you some of the greatest lessons in your fragrance journey? What are some of the fragrances that you kind of have a level of nostalgia for? Drop those in the comments as well. I'd love to hear that. We'll catch you guys on the next one. You have a good day. Much love.